A beam of
Ein heller
electric
Lichtstrahl
light
durchbricht
pierces
die
the
Dunkelheit
darkness
über
over
den
the calm
Atlantik.
waters of the
Leise
Atlantic Ocean.
durchquert die Titanic den Ozean. Ihre
The
Passagiere
Titanic
schlafen,
is quietly
als
making
plötzlich
its
ein
way
weißer
through the
Umriss
waves,
von dem
its
Lichtkegel
passengers
eingefangen
asleep,
wird.
when
Der
suddenly a
schicksalhafte
monstrous
Eisberg ist
white
kurz
shape is
davor,
caught in
die
the light
Seite des
beam.
legendären
The
Schiffs
fateful
zu
iceberg
zerreißen.
is about to
Es ist
rend
der
the
14.
side of the
April
legendary ship.
1912. Nur 2 Tage bevor jemand ein Foto des riesigen Eisbergs mit der ungewöhnlichen elliptischen Form machen wird. Wie sich herausstellt, bestand dieser Eisberg vermutlich aus Schnee, der vor 100.000 Jahren fiel. Forscher nutzten Computermodelle, um seine Herkunft zu bestimmen. Sie nutzten Daten aus dem Jahr 1912 und fügten neue Informationen über den Wind und die Meeresströmungen hinzu. Sie fanden heraus, dass der Eisberg vermutlich zu einer kleinen Gletschergruppe im Südosten Grönlands gehörte.
These days, it's possible to
Heutzutage
calculate
ist
the
es
routes
möglich,
of
die
such
Routen solcher
icebergs in
Eisberge
any
in
given
jedem
year in the
beliebigen Jahr
past.
zu berechnen.
So, the infamous
berühmte
chunk of
Eisberg
ice
war also
was on
auf
its
dem
way
Weg
from
von
Greenland
Grönland in eine
to an
Gegend
area further
südlich von
south from Cornwall.
Wäre
If
das
the
Schiff
ship
nur
had
2
passed
Tage
through that
später durch
region
diese
only
Gegend
2
gefahren,
days
wäre
later,
der
the
Eisberg
iceberg would
bereits
have
weit
moved
von dem
far
Punkt
away
entfernt
from the
gewesen,
point where they
an dem
met.
sie aufeinander
At
trafen.
first, the weight of the
Zunächst
most
lag das Gewicht
well-known
des
iceberg in the
berühmtesten
world
Eisbergs der
was
Welt bei
75 million
75 Millionen
tons.
Tonnen.
With
Doch
time,
mit der
it
Zeit
started to
begann er zu
slowly melt
schmelzen.
away.
Als die
And when it
Titanic ihn
sank the
rammte, war
Titanic,
er nur
its weight was
1,5
only
Millionen Tonnen
1.5
schwer.
million
Zum
tons.
Zeitpunkt des
By the
Zusammenstoßes
time of the
war
collision,
er
it had
vermutlich seit
probably been
Monaten am
melting for
Schmelzen.
months, but
Aber
it was
er war
still
immer
a
noch
true
monströs.
monster. When the
Als die
Titanic sank,
war
the
der
iceberg
Eisberg
was
gut
400 feet
120
long,
Meter lang.
and more than
Der
100
Teil, der
feet
aus
of
dem
its
Wasser
surface
ragte,
was
war mehr
above
als
the
30
water.
Meter hoch.
Some people believe it was a
Einige
super
glauben,
moon that
dass ein
caused the
Supermond für
Titanic to
das Sinken
sink.
der Titanic
That night,
verantwortlich ist.
there was a rare
In
lunar
dieser
event.
Nacht fand
It
ein
hadn't
seltenes
happened for
Himmelsereignis statt,
1,400
das es
years.
seit 1400
In normal
Jahren
conditions,
nicht
the
gegeben
iceberg
hatte.
wouldn't have traveled so
Unter
far
normalen
south
Umständen
without
wäre der
melting
Eisberg nie
and
so
losing
weit
the
südlich
largest
gereist,
part of
ohne
its
zu
mass.
schmelzen
But
und
the
einen Großteil
supermoon could
seiner
have
Masse
been the
zu verlieren.
reason for an
Aber der
unusually high
Supermond
tide
könnte der
that
Grund für
pulled
die
the iceberg
ungewöhnlich
away
hohen
from the
Zeiten
glacier
gewesen sein,
way faster
durch
than
die der
usual.
Eisberg schneller als gewöhnlich vom
There's a
Gletscher aufstieg.
specific type of
Es gibt
bacteria
eine bestimmte
that slowly
Bakterienart,
consumes the
die
remains of the
Überreste der
Titanic.
Titanic abbaut.
Salt corrosion,
Salzkorrosion,
ocean currents, freezing
Meeresströmungen und die
temperatures,
Kälte
plus
sowie
this
diese
rust-eating
rostfressenden
microorganism
Bakterien
might
könnten das
consume the
ganze
entire
Wrack
wreckage.
vernichten. Die amerikanische Schauspielerin
American
Dorothy
actress
Gibson
Dorothy
war an
Gibson
Bord
was
der
aboard the
Titanic.
Titanic.
Sie
She
überlebte,
survived,
und als
and
sie
when
in
she
New York
arrived in New
ankam,
York,
begann
she
sie
started
kurz
filming
darauf,
a
den
movie
Film
called Saved from the
Titanic zu drehen.
Titanic almost right
Der
away.
Film wurde schon
The
einen
movie
Monat
was
nach dem
released
Unglück
only a month
veröffentlicht.
after the
Darin trägt sie
Titanic
sogar
sank.
dieselben Schuhe
And in
und
the
Kleider,
movie,
die sie bei
she
dem
even wore the
tatsächlichen
same shoes
Untergang
and
trug.
clothes
Der
she
Film
had
war
during
ein
the
großer
actual
Erfolg,
disaster.
aber die
The
einzige
movie
Kopie,
was a
von
big
der man
success
weiß,
at that
wurde
time,
bei einem
but the
Feuer
only known
zerstört.
copy was destroyed in a fire. 14 years
14
before the
Jahre vor dem
Titanic
Untergang der
sank,
Titanic
a novella
kam eine
called
Novelle mit dem
Futility
Titel
had been
Titan
published,
heraus.
and it seemed to have
Und scheinbar
predicted the
sagte
whole
diese das
event.
Unglück
The
voraus.
plot centered
In dem
around a
Buch ging es
fictional
ein
ship
erfundenes
called the
Schiff namens
Titan that sank
das
during
auf
its
seiner
voyage.
Reise sank.
The Titan was
Die
almost
Titan
the
war
same
fast
size
so groß
as
wie die
Titanic, and they
beide
both
sanken
went to the
im
bottom
April,
in
jeweils
April.
wegen eines
The
Eisbergs.
reason was hitting an
Sowohl
iceberg,
das
too.
fiktionale
Both
als auch
the
das
real
echte
and
Schiff galten
fictional
als
ships were
unsinkbar.
described as
Und beide
unsinkable,
hatten die
and
gesetzlich
both of them
vorgeschriebene
had the
Anzahl
legally
an
required number of
Rettungsbooten, was, wie
lifeboats,
sich später
which, as it turned out
herausstellte, viel
later,
zu wenig
were
war.
nowhere near enough. We've seen it in the movie, but
Nicht
there
nur
were
im
some
Film,
real-life
sondern
love
auch auf der
stories
echten
happening on the
Titanic
Titanic,
gab es
too.
Liebesgeschichten.
13 couples
Ganze
even took
13
a trip
Paare
on the
verbrachten
Titanic
ihre
as part of their
Flitterwochen auf der
honeymoon.
Titanic.
One of the
Eines
couples
davon
owned
besaß
Macy's
das Macy's
department store in
Kaufhaus
New
in New
York.
York.
Once it
Als
became
man
clear
wusste,
the
dass die
Titanic was
Titanic rasch
rapidly
sank,
sinking,
lehnte die
the
Frau
woman
ab,
refused to
ohne
go
ihren
into a
Ehemann ins
lifeboat
Rettungsboot zu
without her
steigen.
husband. But he didn't want to join her while there were still women and
Aber
children
wollte
who
nicht
he thought
einsteigen,
had to
weil
go
es noch Frauen
first.
und Kinder gab.
Then his wife
Da
gave
gab
her
die Frau
coat to
ihrer
her
Magd
maid.
ihren Mantel
She
und
insisted
bestand
that the
darauf, dass
maid
sie
should
ins
get into the
Rettungsboot stieg.
lifeboat, and she
Sie wollte,
wanted her
dass
to be
ihr warm
warm.
war. Die
As
Frau
for the
selbst
woman
entschied sich
herself,
bis zum
she
Ende bei
decided to
ihrem Mann
stay
zu
with her
bleiben.
husband till the end. Some people believe
Einige glauben,
Titanic
dass die
sank because of
Titanic
a
wegen einer
money,
Mumie
not an
und nicht
iceberg.
wegen eines
It all
Eisbergs
started
sank.
around
Alles
1000
begann rund
BCE
1000
with
vor
a
Christus
mysterious
mit einer
woman who
mysteriösen
lived in Egypt,
Ägypterin, die
in the
in der
city
Stadt
of
der Diebe
Thebes.
lebte.
People knew
Man
little
wusste
little
nur
about her,
wenig über
but
sie,
they call
aber sie
her
wurde
a
als
priestess.
Priesterin bezeichnet.
Her mummy was
Ihre
put in a
Mumie
wooden
wurde in einen
sarcophagus
hölzernen
and covered with a
Sarkophag
large
gelegt,
lid
dessen Deckel
with the
ihr
image
Gesicht
of her
und
face
mysteriöse
and some
Inschriften
mystical
geschnitzt wurden.
inscriptions. This
Dieser Ort
place
war
had
bis
been
zur
hidden
ersten Hälfte
until the
des
first
19.
half of the
Jahrhunderts
19th
unbekannt,
century,
bis eine
when a
Gruppe
group of
von
locals
Einwohnern ihn
accidentally
fand.
came across it. They disturbed her peace. No one knows how, but the mummy disappeared that day without a trace. A couple of decades later, a group of rich friends from England traveled to Egypt and found the empty mummy casket with the image of the priestess, whose dark eyes seemed to be looking into the void. They decided to buy it, but the buyer disappeared the same night before he even got the case. All members of the group had some accidents. The casket changed its location a couple of times until it, as some believe, ended up on the Titanic. It took more than 70 years for a robot submarine to find the ruins of this legendary ship. The wreck lies nearly 13,000 feet under the surface of the Atlantic Ocean, split into two halves. Why did the liner break apart? No one knows exactly. Some think it happened because of the water that got inside when the ship collided with the iceberg. The pressure was so powerful it separated two parts of the vessel, starting with the ship's bottom structure. Others say it was because of the hull rivets. They had a high concentration of slag or smelting residue, and that's something that can cause the metal to split apart. The ship generally had many flaws, starting with the design. The watertight bulkheads weren't completely sealed on top. This allowed the water to flow between the compartments and, in the end, sink the vessel. The iron of the ship's rivets and steel of the hull ended up ruined because of high sulfur content, cold temperatures, and high speeds. The steel shattered and the rivets popped out quite easily. Because of this, Titanic sank 24 times faster than it would have otherwise. If the ship had hit the iceberg head-on instead of ramming it with its side, it would have probably stayed afloat. How come the crew members didn't have binoculars? It would have surely helped them spot the iceberg on time and maybe even avoid the disaster. But the binoculars on the Titanic were locked in a storage cabinet. Only one crew member had the key, and he had been transferred off the ship right before it set sail. He later said he had remembered to hand over the key. But even without the binoculars, the ship might have had some time to change course and avoid the collision if the crew had gotten some warning. But that's the thing, someone did warn them. About an hour before the incident, a ship that was relatively close to Titanic, the SS California, sent a message to inform them it had stopped because of dense ice field. But the warning never got to the Titanic's captain. Some experts say it was because the radio operator didn't think it was that urgent. And later, the SS Californian said they didn't get a call for help from the Titanic because their radio operator was off duty. Some say the crew on the Titanic couldn't spot the iceberg on time because of an optical illusion. Atmospheric conditions that night probably caused super refraction, which could have camouflaged the berg. After all, no one actually saw the iceberg until it was too close to the ship to somehow avoid the crash. Not even a whole minute passed between the moment they saw the iceberg and the collision. It was only 37 seconds, and it took Titanic 2 hours and 40 minutes to disappear below the ocean's waves.